Hola Zimbabwe muhle muri Zimbabwe lingali chona njani mthakazo muhle Zimbabwe muhle kwazwai muri Zimbabwe vateereri vose vari kupinda muchirongwa tinotenda zvikurusa tinomugamuchirai pachirongwa chedu chevechidiki uhlelo The Connection ilami uMike Hove muri Zimbabwe. If you tuned in right now, you tuned into Live Talk The Connection brought to you by Studio 7 Voice of America muri Zimbabwe, Studio 7's very own youth program that targets tackling anything and everything youth related muri Zimbabwe. We're coming to you on Tuesday, January 11, 2021. Mthakazo muhle, Zimbabwe muhle. I'm your host, Mike Hove. Once again, muri Zimbabwe wonke umuntu ongenayo kuhlelo siyakwamukela kuhlelo lethu labasakhulayo tinomugamuchirai muchirongwa chedu chevechidiki. If you're tuning in right now, welcome from wherever you are in the world. Welcome to The Connection, our Studio 7's very own youth program that targets tackling anything and everything youth related. I'm your host, Mike Hove muri Zimbabwe. We're coming to you from my apartment in Washington, D.C. Now, nasi muchirongwa chedu chevechidiki muri Zimbabwe namhlanje kuhlelo lethu labasakhulayo siqhubekela phambili sikhangela udaba lokumemetheka kwe-coronavirus elizweni tukwendera mberi tichibata nyaya yekupararira kwedenda re-COVID-19. We're going to be touching on the spreading of COVID-19 in Zimbabwe. However, the conversation is not going to end there. Muri Zimbabwe, tonight's focus is going to be about youth participation in Zimbabwe's voter registration program. So that's going to be the focus of our discussion. Unfortunately, tonight's program is a pre-recorded broadcast, Maria Zimbabwe. So what this means is you will not be able to call in live as per usual to give your contributions. However, we're streaming on our 3 Facebook platforms as we speak, that being VOA Ndebele, VOA Shona, and VOA Studio 7 Maria Zimbabwe. So you can still give your contributions by writing your comments in the comments section, Maria Zimbabwe. For all our YouTube fanatics, we are broadcasting live on YouTube as we speak. Our official page is at VOA Zimbabwe. I repeat, at VOA Zimbabwe. So we're live there, so you can go check us out there. And for those that are our web fanatics, we're broadcasting live on the web as we speak, that being www.voandebele.com. We're also available on www.voashona.com. And lastly, but not least, at www.voazimbabwe.com. So those are our 3 web pages where we're broadcasting live as we speak. So because you cannot join in live, you can write your comments in the comments section on our 3 Facebook pages. Share. Do not forget to press the share button, Maria Zimbabwe, so that we can watch the program in our numbers. And most importantly, like. Do not forget to press the like button, Maria Zimbabwe. Musakanga nokutinya paye pakanzi like kuitira kuona kuti aiwa zvechokwadi tinitose pano pachirongwa chedu chevechidiki sisonke like so lapha kuhlelo lethu labasakhulayo. So Zimbabwe muhle lingakhohle, put your comments in the comment section, press the like button, and of course press the share button. Now, as usual, Maria Zimbabwe, let's delve into tonight's discussion. First up, an update on COVID-19. Now, according to the most recent figures released by the Ministry of Health and Childcare, Maria Zimbabwe, Zimbabwe currently has 223,000 COVID-19 cases, 196,515 recoveries, and 5,180 deaths. Now, last night alone, 709 new cases were recorded, 2,209 recoveries, and 20 deaths. Now, to date, 4,172,000 people have taken the first jab of the COVID-19 vaccine. And of course, 3,192,000 people are fully vaccinated. But whilst on the discussion of the coronavirus and, of course, the vaccine, the Ministry of Health and Childcare continues urging citizens to take the COVID-19 jab in order for Zimbabwe to reach herd immunity as soon as possible. For more information, Maria Zimbabwe, let's head over to a clip that we have, courtesy of the Ministry of Health Health and Childcare's Twitter page. For more and to watch the full clip, head over to their Twitter page. The clip is also available on their Facebook page and their YouTube page. Let's head over to the clip to hear what the Ministry of Health is saying about the importance of taking the COVID-19 jab.
Hello there. I'm here to give you the latest information and advice from the Ministry of Health and Childcare on COVID-19. Due to the recent surge in COVID-19 cases, the Ministry of Health and Childcare Zimbabwe encourages members of the public to get vaccinated against COVID-19. COVID-19 vaccines have been approved and are being rolled out for use in Zimbabwe today. These vaccines have met strict standards of safety, quality, and effectiveness set out by the Medicines Control Authority of Zimbabwe. It is a legal requirement that all vaccines and medicines used in our health facilities undergo rigorous testing, including all recommended clinical trials before they are approved for use. Currently, Zimbabwe is using Sinopharm and Sinovac, both from China, as well as Covaxin from India. The Ministry of Health and Childcare also recently approved the use of Sputnik V from Russia. The COVID-19 vaccines are being provided for free to all those who are eligible and want to protect themselves. Here are some advantages to being vaccinated. Getting vaccinated will help keep you from getting COVID-19. The vaccines currently available in Zimbabwe have been highly effective at preventing the disease. As an additional benefit, based on what we know about vaccines from other diseases and early data from clinical trials, experts believe that getting vaccinated may also keep you from getting seriously ill, even if you get COVID-19. And if that's not enough, getting vaccinated yourself may also protect people around you, particularly those at increased risk of severe illness, like the elderly or the immunocompromised. That's those that have an impaired immune system. COVID-19 vaccination is a safer way to help build protection. Getting COVID-19 may offer some natural protection known as immunity, but gaining immunity this way can have serious life-threatening complications. There is no way to know how COVID-19 will affect you, and if you get sick, you could end up spreading the disease to your family, to your friends, and to those around you. So vaccination is an alternative way to gain immunity by creating antibody responses without having to experience sickness.
Well, Muria Zimbabwe, you're hearing there from the Ministry of Health and Childcare. Babe chasisa ngempela ukuthi kuqakathekile okungakanani ukuhlatshwa leli jekiseni elivikela coronavirus. Muria Zimbabwe angathi tsanangura ka kukhosha kwekubayiwa nomba inodzivira COVID-19. But now, Muria Zimbabwe, Zimbabwe is not the only African country battling to reach herd immunity as soon as possible. Now, if we look at South Africa, for example, despite having the highest COVID-19 infections, less than half of its adult population have received the COVID-19 jab. And unlike in Zimbabwe, South Africa is yet to establish what they're calling a COVID mandate, which is where they are putting in place where, for example, if you need to enter certain places, you need to have taken the COVID-19 jab. However, in South Africa, the private industry is starting to play a crucial role in educating the masses on the importance of taking the COVID-19 jab. Let's head over to a report that we have by VOA correspondent Linda Givatash, who explains more about what's happening in South Africa with regards to the COVID-19 vaccine. Let's head over to her report, which she produced for VOA's Africa 54.
Thousands of COVID-19 vaccination sites have opened across South Africa, but the flow of patients has stalled. From the peak of over 1 million vaccines administered in 1 week in August, numbers have plummeted to under 150,000 last week. The decline comes as the country fell far short of government targets to inoculate 67% of the population by the end of 2021. The manager of the Parkhurst Clinic in Johannesburg says dispelling misinformation could encourage more people to get their shots.
providing more health education to our community. Or why vaccinate, what is the importance of vaccinations. Giving more information will assist, will reduce those kinds of resistance and myths about the vaccine.
Companies are taking steps beyond public education. Discovery is the largest private health insurer in South Africa. The company encouraged vaccination of its clients by offering rewards points and cash back on life insurance premiums. In September, Discovery also mandated its 11,000 employees be vaccinated, and the policy worked. Staff vaccination rates jumped from 22% to 94% within 3 months.
Discovery is well versed and has done extensive work over the years around behavioral psychology and incentives and rewards for getting people to behave in particular ways and supporting those behavioral changes. But those behavioral changes only get you to a certain point. But once you start getting to the 70% thresholds, you need firmer levers to get people over the finish line.
Whelan said employees overwhelmingly welcomed the mandate and the reassurance it brings for going back to work. But he said 2 to 3% of employees have remained resistant. As more companies introduce similar policies, legal battles have been raised arguing it infringes on individual rights. The country is still waiting to see how the courts will rule on the issue.
We know from previous cases during the pandemic that these competing community rights to life and health weigh extremely heavily and can warrant the infringement of individual rights in certain situations, but particularly in the context of a pandemic as serious as COVID-19. So it is very likely that vaccine mandates will be found to be constitutional in South Africa.
Without faster uptake, the country's hard-won vaccine supply will expire. In November, the government asked Johnson & Johnson and Pfizer, as well as the U.S. government, to delay sending more vials. The same month, President Cyril Ramaphosa warned widespread mandates were being considered.
We've reached a point where our supply of vaccines outstrips the demand for them. So we need to get that demand back up so that we ensure that all the vaccines we have at our disposal are utilized and that we reach that goal of population-level immunity.
She says mandates can play a strong role in increasing vaccination rates if other barriers like transportation to clinics and time off work are tackled as well. Linda Giftash for VOA News, Johannesburg.
Well, as lukandaba mthakazo mohleli yazibonela phela ngempela okwenzakalayo kwele South Africa, where a lot of private companies are now starting to step in bekhuthaza uZulu kwele South Africa ukuthi hayi ezilukandaba phumani ngobunengi beni liyohlatshwa leli jekiseni. Even abantu abadabuka kwamanye amazwe abahlala kwele South Africa labo sebeyenelisa ukuhlatshwa leli jekiseni elivikela i-coronavirus muri eZimbabwe. Saka ndizvo ngurwa ngurwaka nemthaphiwe nawo we-Voice of America Linda Giftash angachitsana ngura zviri kusangana nevanhu kuSouth Africa uko vazhinji vari kutya kubaiwa nhomba iyi inodzivirira COVID-19 asi vanhu vakazvimirira, makambani akazvimirira asingashandi nehurumende nawo vakupinda munyaya iyi vachikurudzira vanhu kuti hanzi budai neuwandu hwenyu muchinobaiwa nhomba inodzivirira COVID-19. So muri eZimbabwe, write your comments in the comment section. Lingakohlwa izulukandaba bhalani imibono yenu ngodaba esilalo kuhlelo lwethu labasakhulayo on our 3 Facebook pages, VOA Ndebele, VOA Shona, and of course VOA Studio 7. But now to delve into tonight's discussion, Muria Zimbabwe, earlier on I mentioned ukuthi namhlanje we're going to be focusing on a youth participation in Zimbabwe's voter registration program. Now, the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, ZEC as it's popularly known, in December released 2021 figures of how many people have registered to vote. Now, these are figures that were released on, of course, December 31st, the last year of 2021, left a lot of analysts, a lot of young people, and a lot of experts surprised as to how many people actually went out there and registered to vote. Now, of course, the reasons were several as to what kept this number at it. Now, the Zimbabwe Electoral Body reports that in 2021, only 2,971 Zimbabweans are registered to vote. Of course, this is people who are eligible to vote for the March by-elections and, of course, the 2023 general elections. Now, in response to this feedback, the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission has announced that they will be soon conducting a biometric voter registration blitz, with more information going to be confirmed. So for those that are looking to check that out, stay tuned and, of course, stay glued to their social media pages. This information was just this morning released on their Twitter pages. Now, to hear more information on voter registration, why the numbers are so low, just only 2,971 registered throughout the year of 2021, and of course, what exactly is happening with the youth, why the youth are not going out in their numbers to register to vote. I reached out to the director of the Matobo Youth Initiative, Mr. Decent Dube. Is also a youth rights advocate. So let's hear more from Mr. Dube on his take as to why the figures are so low, what exactly is happening, and whether or not youth are interested in the upcoming elections. Let's hear what Mr. Dube had to say.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity, Mike. What I'm thinking is that first I would like to acknowledge that there is really a voter apathy among abantu abatsha. Young people are not turning out as much as we would want them to turn out in terms of voter registration. So, but that statistics, it was shocking as you realized it raised a lot of talks around the credibility and stuff like that, which is not good considering the country previously has been going through disputed elections, a lot of accusations against ZEC. But young people, honestly, we really need to raise our socks, register, and I would also want to challenge the civil society. They really need to have a bit of understanding the reason why people are not registering before we say now we're doing voter education, but we really need to understand what's the issue, why do young people not going to register and issues like that. But I also want to comment on the context of the rural context. It's really difficult for young people to travel, for example, 100 kilometers or more for them to go and register to vote. You realize sometimes my rural home is 30 kilometers, is 40 kilometers away from where the actual voter registration is taking place. And for you to get there, you need 70 rand to go there and 70 rand to come back, which is 140 rand. So honestly, it's rare for someone who is not really empowered, who doesn't understand the need for him or her to participate to actively participate in the voter in the electoral process, to spend 140 rand to register to vote. And sometimes there's a possibility of he might not be registered and stuff like that. So I think there are really issues going on which need to be addressed as a matter of urgency.
Dube, whilst on the discussion of the rural areas, I'm actually really glad I have you on the show as a guest today, because of course you're based in the rural areas. I've spoken to some youth who say that there are a lot of young people who don't have identity documents in the rural areas, and that's contributing to the low turnout that we witnessed, that SEC reported in December. What are your thoughts on that?
I've noted in rural areas, you realize most of the young people that don't have identity documents due to distance, ID documents, because that's the same place register vote. So this thing, I think, especially in rural areas, is a bit tricky, because you realize only in a district which is a circumference of maybe 200 kilometers to 300 kilometers, only three places are people where they can acquire documents are. So that if umuntu angahamba khona ngale thola ukuthi umthini ufile we're not processing ID, uzathola ukuthi akasela imali yokuthi abuyele, end up saying ukuthi what's the purpose yokuthi kumele ngihambe, kugcine seyekela, then it goes to South Africa ehambe ngela ID, noma ebuya back uthothi vele lama identity documents for him to be able, or him or her to be able to register to vote. Then the other thing is that bakhona abantu vele abangazange babalawo even lama birth certificate. I hope you can still hear me, Mike.
Yes, I can.
Yeah, bakhona abantu abangazange babalawo ama identity documents from the onset, like from a birth certificate. So what you realize ukuthi khona uzathola ukuthi umuntu kazange waba le birth certificate ezalwa, maybe it can be the case of ukuthi khona abazali maybe babalaye bazomchiya base South Africa. You know, immigration has got a lot of impact on the issue of identity documents and stuff. People go there, maybe bezochiya abantwana labo gogo, abantwana labana bekhule bengela ama-ID, and this thing is affecting the whole process. Then there's the issue of how did it affect? It affects even the generations which are coming in, especially in the context of Imatepeleni and Matobo, to be specific. So that some people, even family, the entire family doesn't have documents. As much as the government is saying now people can come and present their story, then they can be assisted in terms of getting their IDs. But few people are having that information. Few people are reluctant to go to the offices and actually utilize that opportunity. So it's a matter of information reaching out to people, knowing they are going to be assisted. But when people think of Home Affairs, when people think of Home Registry offices, they think of that treatment which is so breaking, the treatment which they will just waste their money. So they end up saying, what's the matter? We're no longer going to acquire these documents. So that's where the issue is. Which kind of voter apathy has got a lot of things which actually lead to that, or some people, they are not even able to do that because they feel like that attached to what is happening in the country. People feel like they are excluded. People feel marginalized. There are a lot of issues which are happening. What's the issue? South Africa. So a lot of the issues are actually leading to this thing of which abantu they don't have documents. They also don't register to vote.
There's another contributing factor to the low voter turnout. Analysts argue Zimbabwe's history with political violence has contributed towards deterring the youth from participating from anything democratic related. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's true, because most of the young people have been used before to actually be part of the violence or to be at the forefront of the violence, which has actually made our families enemies, our communities, and stuff. So now when people talk about politics, elections, they think of politics, how politics, especially 2008, I think it left a lot of the society damaged. Because I still remember the way it happened. It left our families so shattered. This operation Mankonde issue and stuff like that. So people now, when they think of elections and you wanting to take part, you are regarded as someone who also want to advance violence and stuff like that. Elections are connected to violence. So now for you to actually make people understand for us to be able to curb this violence which is happening, we just have to take part in the electoral process. It's a mammoth task. We really need to work hard as a collective. To understand it was just a few individuals who actually instigated that violence and also made people think elections are related to violence and stuff. So now young people, when they think of elections, they think these young people who are talking about, they experienced it. They were still young. They're in primary schools. Some of them were Form 1, some of them were Form 2. And they experience, when they think of elections, they think of that violence. So for you to convince that person to go and vote, it's a task. That person will be like thinking, okay, so that people with some so and so can violate so young people may be burning into and stuff like that. It's true. So it's a thing which we really need to deal with as a collective, because young people, they experienced that. Everyone who is supposed to vote now experienced violence, which was related to elections and stuff. So we really need to make them understand for us to be able to forget about that. People need to take part in the electoral process and set a narrative which we are all going to be proud of and stuff like that. But this also needs for all stakeholders to come in and also say, assure people elections and violence are two parallel things, and they're not supposed to be complementing each other and stuff like that.
Now, looking at the 2018 elections, there was a large number of young people that were vying for public office. Here I'm talking members of parliament, here I'm talking council seats. Would you argue that was a contributing factor to the large turnout of youth participation in general? We saw a lot of young people coming out to vote. and a lot of young people obviously partaking in the voter registration program, would you argue having a lot of young people vying for public office actually helped court young people to want to partake in this process?
I think yes. I think because there were a lot of, especially independent candidates, where young people, it actually motivated maybe young people to go and register to vote. But I think, but I also think it was part of it. It's not like it entirely people contested. Then it motivated young people to go and vote. I feel like it was like people decided to just go and vote. And it's unfortunate 2018 elections came with violence and stuff like that. So now people are becoming even more reluctant to be part of that because they feel like it is useless. What's the purpose of going to vote when is a BT contested and stuff like that? So then it ends up to people dying. So I feel like it was a process, it was a gradual thing happening for people to go and register to vote, and we're going to see it happening. But I feel like what happened in 2018 is one of the factors which leads to people not young people not registering to vote in this season. Because if things had actually gone smoothly, the whole process the actual voting and the post-election, if it actually went smoothly without any contestations, without people dying, it was going to be even more this time around. But now people are thinking, for us to take part to be some other drama or in the limelight, making headlines because of this violence and stuff like that. So for people to, I feel like we're going to see even more young people contesting, not because young people have registered and stuff like that, but just because they no longer believe in the mainstream political parties. They just think unless they have some independent, they know they might not win and stuff, but I feel like there are going to be more young people contesting to vote because few people are now believing in the mainstream political parties, especially young people. So if they happen to take part in the electoral process, they will be actually doing it as independent. And I feel like we might see some independent candidates, especially young people, maybe getting something because young people have learned a lot. We are learning. This is a process. Now people know we really need to fix this from a local perspective, from a local from the grassroots for us to influence the national discourse of the electoral process. So I think we are going to see a drastic change, something happening, especially this year going on to 2023. But we're hoping that there won't be violence because violence will lead to voter apathy, the young people shying away from the electoral process.
Now, ZEC reported extremely low figures in 2021. I can only imagine January 2022 isn't that much more different. President Emmerson Mnangagwa recently announced that Zimbabwe will be having its by-elections in March 26th to fill, of course, these vacant posts that are in Parliament and in our council. Do you think that a lot of young people are going to turn up for this by-elections?
I've just learned yesterday that whoever is going to be registering as from these days won't be taking part in the by-elections in those constituencies which are actually supposed to be by-elections supposed to be taking place. So I have a feeling that a lot of people in those in Matobo fortunately were not having any by-elections, which is a good thing because these by-elections have been coming with a lot of complications, dividing the country and weakening the progress in the country. So, but I feel like in those constituencies where by-elections are going to be taking place, I feel like there's going to be a lot of, a high voter turnout because people spend a lot of time without having representatives. They ended up getting to understand that they don't have representatives, and they would definitely. It was a way of them getting to understand that something is happening in the country, and I feel like everyone got to understand what was the context, what was going on in the country, and they would definitely participate just because they now know what is happening. So I feel like there is going to be high voter turnout is not going to be low. Those who are registered to vote, I'm feeling they are going to register, because it's happening even in urban. Most of the constituencies are in the urban areas, of which I have a feeling that a lot of people are going to vote. That's my opinion. It might happen the opposite, but I feel like it's definitely going to see a lot of people register. I mean, participating, voting compared to 2018. I think it to be more compared to 2018.
Now, decent, with arguably less than a year to go until 2023, what do you think can be done by A, youth-led organizations, B, ZEC itself, and C, political parties, to court the youth of the nation into participating into the voter registration program, and of course, actually going out to vote in 2023? What can be done by these three institutions?
First of all, I'd like to appreciate the organizations who have been already embarking on the voter education, specifically targeting young people. I feel like they've done a lot. And we really need to be patient when we're dealing with young people. You don't need to judge them. We just need to understand the reason why they're not participating. I feel like if you were to understand, try to talk to a young person and convince that young person, you really need to understand why that person is not interested in the electoral process. But we just need to be patient and also understand why young people are not taking part. So as young organizations, you also need to work as a collective. You don't have to do this as individuals, or we just need to have a collective approach and be non-partisan. Let's not make this thing a partisan issue. This voter education has to be non-partisan and make people understand what corner. By telling you what corner, go and register to vote, we are not telling you who to vote for. Just go and register and exercise your right, and also save your constituents from being affected by the delimitation process, and also make sure that at the end of the day in 2023 you can go and vote for your choice, for the candidate of your choice. So these are the issues which you need to keep, and it gives them confidence. For someone to know that you are actually pulling out your resources to make him just participate without even getting to it's secondary for that to know who that person is going to vote for. We just need to make them to be conscious of what is happening around them, to know the importance of voting and stuff like that. Because if we politicize this thing, the voter education, we might end up getting negative results, which are going to make us a failure as a civil society. So we really need to make it a community thing, a community need, and also a collective need, whereby we need to save our constituencies, we need to save our country, and we need to make sure that no one is left behind.
Now, earlier on, you mentioned that youth in rural areas are deterred from participating from programs such as the voter registration program because of the expenses that go behind it. Now, do you think if ZEC had more mobile exercises, more mobile stations that go to the people to allow them to register to vote, do you think that this would help increase the numbers that we're witnessing here?
Yeah, I really feel like there's need for ZEC to actually go to the people, also go to those polling stations and also register to vote, working with the civil society, of course, to also mobilize people to meet ZEC in those polling stations and register to vote and stuff like that. I feel like even if ZEC, I know ZEC might argue that they are not having resources to actually do these mobile registrations and stuff, but I'm sure the civil society organizations who are working with ZEC. I saw ZEC releasing names of the organizations who are going to be doing the voter education and stuff. And those organizations might pool resources and help the ZEC reach out to people. So I feel like this thing has to be a two-way process. ZEC needs to benefit from those people and also need to make sure that at the end of the day, people are the ones who are benefiting. Because if it's just being there on social media, on the mainstream media, saying we want people to vote, go and vote in this location and stuff, but not reaching out to people. For someone deep there maybe in the border of Botswana and Shashe, to go to travel to Kezi to go and register to vote. It's a tricky thing to do, because that person needs to put on the table, and to get 200 rands to go to Kezi to register and vote, and they might not be able to register and vote. But if you come to the community, you give those people platform to register to vote, you advise them what to bring and so on to lead for high turnout in 2023. Because if you say, go to Kezi if you want to vote, they feel like, why is it like no one cares about me? There is that thing whereby they feel like, these politicians, they tend it to be a political issue. Why these politicians want us to go there? It's like they're doing it for the politicians. They know that it's their mandate to vote, because it's their responsibility as citizens, so that they can decide who leads them in future.
I say, we hear you very loudly and clearly. As we wrap up, as we wrap up our discussion here, before, what are your last sentiments that you have for the listeners?
Yes, to young people, I would like to actually tell them what you don't have to feel embarrassed that we are regarded as people who are not responsible and stuff like that. We just have to learn from it and rise up to the occasion, and also go and register. It's a process. Change doesn't happen overnight. People need to understand that a lot of things have happened, and there's a reason why young people are not registering to vote. So we also seek stakeholders to also be part of the process, the hold young people hands and make sure that they understand the importance of voting. And also, I would like to tell young people that it's their responsibility to take part in this, because at the end of the day, they are the ones who are complaining of what is happening around them. Leaders sometimes disappoint them, the councillors sometimes disappoint them, and stuff like that. So now this is an opportunity for them to be part of the whole process, to monitor the process. You cannot monitor a process which you're not part of. Tell your family, tell your friends to go and register to vote, and also don't judge those who haven't registered yet. Just make them understand that the need of registering to vote. But let's not judge each other. We need each other at this moment. We just need to make this thing our struggle as a nation that everyone needs to be part of. So as young people, we can set the narrative and change this status quo and make sure that everyone is happy with the outcome, everyone participated, not the majority who are complaining being the ones who didn't take part in the process. So you just have to decide. And for you to decide, you just have to register to vote.
Well, shout out to Mr. Decent Dube for taking time out to be with us. Pano pachirongwa chedu chechidiki aiware tinotenda zvikuru kuna vaDube avo vatora nguva yavo kuti vave nesu pano pachirongwa chedu chechidiki vachitsanangurawo kamhaundo avo nezvenyaya yekuti hanzi pari zvino munyika sangano reZimbabwe Electoral Commission kana kuti ZEC vakataurawo nemusi wa31 December kuti aiwa munyika manga muine vanhu 2,971 vakanyoresa kundovhota mugore ra2021. Saka takurukura navaDube vechidiki vanorwira kodzero dzevechidiki, tikavabvunza kuti zvii zviri kuita kuti vechidiki vasabude neuwandu hwavo vachindonyoresa kuvhota. VaDube vatsanangura zvinhu zvakasiyana-siyana, vakazeya vakatsanangura vakati aiwa nemaondro avo nyaya dzekumbunyikidzwa kwekodzero dzevechidiki, nyaya dzekuti vechidiki vakawanda vari kumaruzeva uko havana mapepa kana zvitupa. Hanzi zvese izvi zviri kukanganisa upenyu hwevechidiki, zvese izvi zviri kuita kuti vechidiki vasabude neuwandu hwavo vachindonyoresa kundovhota. Imi muri kuzvionawo sei muri yeZimbabwe? Nyorai maondro enyu papeji redu reFacebook paVOA Studio 7, VOA Shona pamwe chete nepaVOA Ndebele. Now, we also reached out to another young person who is Mr. Nigel Ndlovu. And Nigel is an aspiring MP. He ran for Member of Parliament for Makwekwe in 2018. He's a youth rights advocate. So I reached out to Nigel to talk about his experience in 2018 and, of course, his understanding of everything that's going on. Let's hear more from Nigel.
Ngiyabonga ungivite lo ngifake ehlelweni lakho uthi Mike once again. So each challenge ekhona lapha sikithi like most young people, they are just fed up in the system. And because siyakwazi ukuthi bahamba uma elections and after elections izinto azichinji. I would say most young people abantu abancane asebekwanisa ukuvota abaningi bacaphukile ngoba ababoni izinto zichinja. Into yokuqala. Okwesibili, ibhodi kumele ifundisa abantu abancane like izeki about i-voter registration. Ayenza umsebenzi wayo. Siyakayela ukuthi karesi nxa for instance abantwana ama-youth asemagwegwe constituency. Xa efuna ukuyaregister kumele gadi ekhona ngale efamona it's the other side of town. Ngamanye ama-challenges akhona wona lawo. And abantu abancane aba-young people abaqatshwanga abasebenzi bayayithatha ngayo imali yogada uzuku. Yabona ukukhatshane ubona ukuthi nxa ukumtshela into lezo ukurejista lama-elections i-interest ivela yikho. Ngoba even lama-body zona la kumele bencedisa abantu abasakhulayo ngendaba zama-elections abahambe ebantwini. It's something like mobile voter registration ihambe ebantwini.
Nigel, let us talk more about the challenges faced by Zimbabwean youth, especially those preventing them from being able to register to vote. Now, I've spoken to a couple of analysts, not just for this program, but in general, and a lot of them argue that there's a lot of young people in Zimbabwe, especially those based in the rural areas, especially those based in the Matabeleland area, who do not have identity documents, who don't even have normal birth certificate. And of course, without one, you can't register to vote. Speak to us about that challenge.
Yes, indaba inalela kunokuthi register kutshona kulama line ungangena deep kwezinye indawo emakhaya uyathola ukuthi i-process yangikhona ilokhu ithatha isikhathi umuntu ukuthi uzothola isithupha uyatshintsha. And for abantu abasakhulayo kuba nzima ngoba yibo abaningi abangena sithupha. So nxa sumtshela ngokuthi kumele register. So kudingakala ukuthi ebe lesithupha yabona ukuthi vele interest iba low. So ngezinye izinto ezi-affect young people with regards to indaba ye-voter registration, especially in Matabeleland, the areas which are marginalized. I was in Matobo a few months back. There's an area abantu abahamba umango like 20 km inyawo besiyaza ukubhalisa ukuthi bethole izithupha. So into leyo is not only eBulawayo kuphela ikhona ezinye kwezinye indawo kuMatobo, which is very frustrating for a young person.
Let me take you back to 2018, Bafo. 2018, the youth came out. A lot of young people came out in their numbers. Bavota. So what's different now, Bafo? Why do we have such a low turnout of young people registering to vote, looking interested in partaking in this entire process? Why? What's different?
2018 was the excitement. We all knew what was Selanga. So what was the vibe? Which young people are looking forward to, like what the next 5 years are going to be like better. Certainly now, if 5 years says Taylor isn't just look as many as Jinjang. So Kono Iko Sakula without the system, without my elections. However, on the other side, I have like young people who are interested in running. They participate in my elections, but in number angikwazi ukuthi izafanana yini nalani ka 2018 yikho lami ngisakukhangelele kodwa for every young person olaleleyo namhla ngithi nxa ulalele you have to make sacrifices even ukuregister ukukhatshana as a young person because it's your duty as a young Zimbabwean to make ama decisions wona la phezulu khona ngalo. So ungayekela uthatha istep lawo okay uyezama ukuregister lesithupha nxa ama-results ama-elections selokhuzile sephumile wena ungarejistanga so i-blame iba kuwe as a young person. So I would say if you're a young person and you've got access to go and register to vote, go and register to vote because every number counts. And now voter, know who you are voting for, know ukuthi umuntu lo uyenzeni, i-track record, don't just vote. And ungaphongulandela ngoba ulandela iphathi enje ngoba ulandela iphathi enje. khangela ama-credentials omuntu ovotelayo singaphumi ukuvotela abantu esingakwazi karesi i-5 years seziphela babisele abanye abantu awamele sibabisele kwezinye indawo bathutha abantu ama-independent bathutha ama-party layekela ukubafaka abantu laba ngabe balethe i-change kodwa karesi lokhu si-stuck we're still stuck in the same place, which is very frustrating as well.
Nigel, talk to me about political violence. Analysts argue that Zimbabwe's history, especially when Iskhat Soketo gets closer and closer and closer, as election periods usually get closer and closer and closer, political violence seems to be happening in Zimbabwe. And analysts argue that's one thing that might be deterring a lot of young people from partaking in issues related to governance. So here we're talking registering the vote, we're talking about vying for public office, etc., etc. What is your take on that?
Indaba ye-violence udlakela ngenye indaba e-affecta i-perception ye-politics nama-elections on young people inkulu kakhulu singakhayela ukwenzakala emtare khayela even i-violence yona eyenzakala kwama-parties even emaswingo like for instance izanu-PF siyezwa ngendaba ezenzakala emaswingo it's really upsetting for young people because young people have got bread and butter issues to deal with. Nxa usukutshela ukuthi into ze-politics kuyaliwa ukuthi abantu bajikelana izitina umuntu ulambile ngathi sithi ayi ngangcono ngenjani ngiyethengisa ngale emsikeni ngishiyane lento lezi ze-politics ngoba ngiyagcina ngifela amahara ukubulawa yi-politics akuncedi. That's the mindset of most young people. So young people want jobs. Young people want employment. So ngaso kubuye ezinye izinto ezinjengabo-violence uyabufelana umuntu esithi ufelayo angcono ngiyezidingela imali because young people are hungry. So into lezi ezenzakalayo kuma-political parties it's really also affecta in terms of ukuthi abantu abasakhulayo be-participate in elections. Abaningi bayesaba balutshwana abantu abalesibindi abasakhulayo abanjengami ngoba siyakwazi ukuthi i-politics i-culture ye-politics eZimbabwe pre-2018 bekunzima kusalo mgaba and i-culture lali lokhu ikhona so abantu bengavele bejikelana izitina emaphathini kumbe amapholisa etsha abantu abafuna uku-exercise ama-democratic rights abo kuyademoralize young people. So it's violence udlakela is really affecting ilokhu political space le democratic space eseZimbabwe when we're looking at young people.
All right, Nigel, let me hold you on the line there and I'll be back with you shortly. Muri Zimbabwe pachirongwa tinava Nigel Ndlovu wechidiki akakwikwidza musarudzo dzemuna 2018 kumagwegoko. Nigel Ndlovu was trying to he actually ran as an independent candidate in attempts to be the MP representative of Magwegwe. Saka tikuziya nyaya yekunyoresa kuvhota munyika muri Zimbabwe tiudzewo maondo enyu nyorai ma-comments enyu mu-comment section pa-page redu pa Facebook pa VOA Shona pamwe chete nepa VOA Studio 7 where we're also broadcasting. Now, before we head back to Nigel Ndlovu, there's a couple of videos that are sourced from Abantu Basakulayo, the youth of the nation, who's told me more about the kind of Zimbabwe they'd like to see post-2023, post the 2023 elections. Let's head over to some of these videos and hear the thoughts of the youth of the nation speaking for themselves.
My name is Margaret Zinumwe, a Zimbabwean youth. So the Zimbabwe that I would love to see is one where everyone is given an equal and fair chance to make it in life. I want to see a Zimbabwe where all citizens will be shareholders in a mining company which focuses in mining at least 2 high-value minerals like diamonds and gold. Every Zimbabwean being a shareholder in that company will receive profit dividend payouts biannually by the virtue of just being a Zimbabwean. This will give everyone a fair chance to make it in life. I want to see a Zimbabwe where hard, honest work is acknowledged. I'm tired of thieves who become rich at the expense of the educated, at the expense of the young people. This can only happen when proper economic fundamentals and institutions are set up. I want to see a Zimbabwe that will afford all young people a chance to achieve their potential. As Zimbabwe, we should acknowledge all trades and avail facilities for such. If I'm a good rugby player, for example, or even a good netball player, I must be given the chance to further my craft at state-of-art institutions and facilities. Above all, I want peace, joy, and love to reign in Zimbabwe. I want Zimbabwe to be a nation, not a thing that belongs to a political party, as they call it, Chinu Chedu. All Zimbabweans are equal and must be treated as such. Ngiyabonga.
Well, Maria Zimbabwe, that was Margaret Zinumwe, a young Zimbabwean speaking for herself, telling us more about the kind of Zimbabwe she'd like to see post-2023. Now, let us also hear from Itai Masango, who is also another young Zimbabwean who speaks on the same matter.
Ilise wechidiki ndine zvandinotarisira kuti zviitike pachapera sarudzo dza2023 sekuteedzerwa kwezvido zveruzhinji. Apa ndiri kureva kuti kupa masimba kubato rinenge rawana vatsigiri vakawanda. Chechipiri, kusava nemhirizhonga seyakamboitika munyika musi wa1 Nyamavhuvhu 2018 mushure mekunge tabva musarudzo. Chechitatu, ndotarisira kuti kuve nekusimukira munyaya dzeupfumi hwenyika. Izvi zvinokonzerwa nekukwezva vemabhizimusi vanouya kuzodzvara mari dzavo munyika kuti nyika yedu ibudirire. Kubatana kwemapato anenge apinda musarudzo vachiisa pfungwa dzavo pamwe chete kuti tofambisa sei nyika ndo chimwe chezvinhu zvandinotarisira kana tichinge tabuda musarudzo dza2023. Kutora pfungwa dzevese vane chekuita nekusimudzirwa kweupfumi hwenyika vakaita sevemabhizimisi, vadzidzi, vemakereke nevechidiki. Izvi zvinobatsira pakuvandudza upfumi hwenyika.
Well, Maria Zimbabwe, you just heard there from Margaret Zinumwe and Itai Masango. Laba ngabantu abasakhulayo izalwane zeZimbabwe abachasisa ngempela okugcweleyo ukuthi bona bafuna ukubona ilizwe elinjani ngemva kokhetho luka-2023. Likubona njani izulu kanti ababhalani imibono yenu kukhasi lethu le-VOA Studio 7 kanye naku-VOA Ndebele ku-Facebook kuma-comments section. Sizwe phela ukuthi lina likubona njani, selibhalisile na ukuyovota. If you haven't registered to vote, what exactly is your challenge? Bhalani imibono yenu ku-Facebook. Nigel, before let me head back to you. You heard the thoughts of the youth speaking there, but I want to hear your thoughts. But before we head over to that particular portion, earlier on you touched on political violence. Could you kindly explain the same point, but in English?
All right. What I was saying is young people in Zimbabwe are worried about bread and butter issues. So when they see political violence emanating in political parties like what we've seen where MDC Alliance was involved in violence, even in Masingo, where ZANU-PF also is involved in violence, it really demoralizes young people, like in terms of participating in the political and the democratic processes like elections, because we've got so much issues which are affecting young people, and young people are concerned about jobs, the jobs which were promised during 2018. They were promised jobs, so young people want jobs. So when they see violence, they'll rather go and hustle, like what young people would say. They'll rather go and hustle instead of participating in politics, in the electoral processes. So yeah, that's what I was saying in Isinde, really.
Now, but to refer back to the videos that we just played, what kind of nation would they like to see post-2023? One thing they hammered on, but they want jobs, and more jobs. That's their biggest ask. Now, what changes need to be done in Zimbabwe to court the youth of the nation to understand they need to register to go vote, and of course they need to vote so that all these changes, all these asks that they are asking for can come true or can come to fruition so that all these changes can happen? What needs to be done to court them to understand that you need to register to go vote for you to see the changes that you're requesting?
From my side, what I think young people should do, I think young people shouldn't lose hope. And those in power at the moment should also come through with their promises, the 2018 promises, because, I mean, guys, we can't be talking about Vision 2030. Young people are still struggling. We need practical solutions on the ground. We need tangible results. That's what young people need. So if they can see something in 2022, it will definitely mean that young people are going to be inspired to go and participate in the processes as well.
Now, Nigel, let us talk a little more about the youth participation in elections. 2018, once again, I like to refer to that, witnessed a lot of young people vying for public office, yourself included. However, the only independent candidate that was successful in winning was Honorable Themba Mliswa, who is by no chance close to being youth. Now, considering the fact that majority of the electorate, majority of the people that went out there and actually casted their votes were young people, why was the result so unfavorable towards young candidates such as yourself?
I think it's the culture. It's the culture of the voting in Zimbabwe. People are aligned to political parties, so they vote for political parties instead of political ideas. So I think it's the culture, and which needs to be changed. Young people need to reform on their own, because at the moment we're still stuck in 1980, we're still stuck in 2008, we're still stuck in 2013, we're still stuck in 2018, because young people themselves also don't want to change. So I mean, the change starts with young people. If young people begin to see that, okay, guys, this is what we want, and we've got these people who are bringing these ideas, why don't you put those young people and make sure you hold them to account? Right now, no one is holding anyone to account. We still have the same people. Like, for instance, in my constituency, we have someone who was there in 2013, we have someone who they voted for in 2018, and we don't see any progress. There's no progress. What is that person saying about young people of Makwekwe in 2021? There's nothing. Young people are struggling. So it starts with the young people, and it also starts with even the older generation. They also need to pass on the baton. We are tired of all the ideas which are not working. Like I said, we don't need Vision 2030. We need practical solutions on the ground. We need tangible results, and we don't need violence. We don't need fighting, which is emanating from political parties. And that starts with the moment young people begin to see that the solutions are coming from them as young people. That's the moment we'll see real change in Zimbabwe. At the moment, even the young people are letting themselves down. I'm sorry to say that, but that's what I'm seeing.
Now, Nigel, we hear talks of policies such as the youth quota and the women quota in parliament. All these targeted towards, courting young people to partake more in issues of governance. Do you think such policies would help in changing that culture that you're referring to?
I mean, there are so many policies which have been put down on paper in Zimbabwe, and most of them haven't worked. Most of them haven't been implemented. I'll talk about the Constitution. Some of the elements in the Constitution are not even being implemented, but we're talking about devolution, for instance. Devolution the government started implementing devolution, like in some parts of the country this year and last year, and in some parts it's still not being implemented. So people can advocate for those policies in parliament for representation of young people. But I mean, if we can't practice what we preach, then we're just wasting our time. So what we need is we put young people in parliament, and let's not just pity put them. I can say, don't just pity us as young people and say young people are crying for seats in parliament. Let's just put them. Because what we have another situation where we have toothless young people in parliament who can't even say anything, incompetent young people as well.
All right, Muria Zimbabwe. Well, that was Nigel Ndlovu, Osakulayo, youth rights activist, and of course, an aspiring member of parliament. We've reached the end of our program today. Ngithanda ukubonga wonke umuntu ongene kuhlelo lwethu labasakhulayo, and thank you so much to everybody that wrote their comments in the comment section and everybody that shared the program, and most importantly ngakhohlwa qhubelani phambili lifitezela lapha yokubhala ukuthi like. Muri Zimbabwe, my time here is up. Let's meet at same time, same place. Pano Panefenyire Studio 7. Anokoneka inimfaro. Ndino yenyu Mike Hove. Tsakazo mushe Zimbabwe mushe. Bye bye.